Look, if you want to focus on the crux of this, you have a concept in law that Sachs knows better than the rest of us called fraudulent conveyance. And we have example after example where it does not matter whether it was in the Bernie Madoff example or, for example, Jason, we talked about it, the guy in LA that lost all that money, client funds playing poker.
Yep.
You have to give the money back, especially if it was fraudulently conveyed to you.
Hey guys, welcome back to Library of Wealth. Today we have Chamath on the All In podcast discussing the continuing fallout of FTX, as well as Kevin O'Leary's recent response to Sam Bankman-Fried on how he plans to get investors' money back despite being paid $15 million to be the spokesman for FTX. Chamath discusses the fraudulent funds SBF acquired from users' accounts and how that was funneled into political donations, as well as real estate and other illegal investments that by definition constitutes fraud. Let's get right into the latest interview with Chamath as he gives his reaction to the crash in FTX, as well as how crypto regulation will play out and what we can expect heading into 2023. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy the content we do here. Let's get right into the video.
If you get money some way, but it comes from somebody who fraudulently acquired that money, you have to give the money back. So in this example, what it would mean is if that they can show that that $15 million that this guy got came from SBF basically raiding the piggy bank of user accounts, he's going to have to pay the money back. Just like, for example, in the Madoff fraud, the folks that went to find the money were able to go back to folks that actually redeemed, even the beginning early ones, and said, I understand that you didn't know any better, but this was fraudulently conveyed to you, so we need the money back. And they got the money back.
In that case, if they had put $1 million in and it grew to $3 million, they got their $1 million principal back, but the $2 million in gains, which were ill-gotten, had to be returned.
Return.
The people covering for SBF, it continues to be an absolute joke. The number of interviews that SBF is doing is absurd, but the people carrying water for him is even more offensive. I mean, if you're a criminal trying to cover up your crime, okay, we get it. You're trying to cover up and stay out of jail. But Kevin O'Leary, who calls himself Mr. Wonderful, was on CNBC trying to defend the fact that he was given, this is stunning, by the way, $15 million to be a spokesperson for FTX. So the grift not only went to the press, politicians, but now commentators on CNBC, $15 million. To put that in context, I mean, you're talking what an elite NBA player gets from Nike. This does not exist in the world. Kevin O'Leary might get, 50 to 200K for speaking gigs, but nobody gets $15 million to show. Any thoughts on the continuing SBF saga, Sachs?
Well, I don't know why we should care so much about him. I mean, Kevin Leary. Yeah. But look,
it's indicative, right? It's indicative of all these guys that got money from this guy.
Who is he? Who is he?
He's on Shark Tank.
He's on what?
He's on Shark Tank, and he's a contributor to CNBC who's on multiple times a week. The point is, like, you've got the grift. I'm just trying to point out, $15 million to a CNBC commentator is just an extraordinary payoff. I've never heard of anything like that.
I don't think it's fair to pick on Kevin O'Leary per se, because there's a bunch of those guys that took money from him. A bunch of athletes did, probably
Senators,
a bunch of movie stars,
PACs, Republicans, Democrats. Yeah,
like everybody got paid by this guy.
Democrats.
So again, just like in the Twitter example, I think it's important in this case to generalize, because the generalized thing is the real problem. Look, if you want to focus on the crux of this, you have a concept in law that Sachs knows better than the rest of us called fraudulent conveyance. And we have example after example where it does not matter whether it was in the Bernie Madoff example or, for example, Jason, we talked about it, the guy in LA that lost all that money, client funds playing poker.
Yep.
You have to give the money back, especially if it was fraudulently conveyed to you.
Chamath goes on to talk about the money that was taken from users' accounts at FTX and used as donations can be undone within a certain period of time. There's also a scenario where SBF can plead guilty to a negligence charge and not have to pay any of the money back that was stolen. Also, because the money was so spread out amongst various groups and investments, that will make it even harder to track down and return.
There's a 90-day rule around contributions, meaning that if, I think this has to do with the bankruptcy, that if he donated money within 90 days, then that can be unwound. So,
90 days,
yeah, but I do think it creates potentially a powerful incentive here by politicians and various political groups for him not to be convicted of fraud, for him to be able to plead this out into some sort of negligence, because they don't have to give the money back.
They keep the bag. What an incredible insight.
Well, this is what I think is so interesting about
So
the Kevin
dark.
O'Leary thing. It's not about Kevin O'Leary, but it's about the fact that the money was spread around so widely and into such like deep trenches of the regulatory
Society.
world,
Yeah.
society, like
Into the blob.
influencers.
Yeah.
And basically, I think the guy like cemented this. He thought that like, which I think, by the way, is a really interesting product of the crypto ecosystem and the model that so many kind of crypto businesses have engaged in over the years, which is if you can fester the belief, then there is a business. If you cannot fester the belief, there is no business. That there isn't a fundamental productivity driver. It's about building a belief system. And you can buy a belief system if you can take money that people have given you, you can embed it in influencers and celebrities and politicians and regulators. And if you give it to enough of these people and you give enough of it to them, maybe that belief system solidifies and your thing becomes real.
You look like you're incredibly rich. You know, you're going to fancy restaurants, you're wearing an expensive suit, you're getting in a sports car, and then you own some palazzo, whatever, and then some other rich person comes and you get them to invest in something, and then you abscond with the money. But they see all the accoutrements, you check all the boxes, your parents were
totally.
Stanford, you went to MIT, and you are donating large sums of money, and you got this big table at the club, and you got a penthouse. Everybody starts to feel, well, might is right. You got the wealth. There might be
how would you guys
something
feel?
going
I
on
mean,
here.
like, how would you guys feel about
Diligence.
honestly, no, backing a CEO of a growth stage company that you put your firm's money into, who lives in a $130 million house and has not yet exited the business?
Yeah, absolute alarm bells everywhere.
Never
I mean,
done
this
it.
is why I'm not a fan
Never
of like
would do it.
secondary sales.
Let me ask you guys a question. Do you think that $1 billion of dark money could stop a red wave? Just asking for a friend.
Honestly, do you think it's overrated,
Yes.
the money he gave
Yes,
out?
his mother
Okay.
was a huge Democratic bundler.
Yeah.
And moreover, the specific politicians he needed to influence, there were some Republicans, but by and large, it was the SEC.
Wait,
it
Zach,
was
so you the first person to make this claim. I want to say, did you hear it here first on the All In
Hear
Pod?
first. Must credit All In Pod.
David Sachs making the declaration that
No, I
the
think Elon
red
said
wave
it.
was stopped because of.
Well, let me ask
SBF.
you a follow-up question. What do you think would have more impact on our election? Enormous amounts of dark money going to Democrats or extensive shadow banning of conservative influencers?
Yeah.
Which one do you think would have a bigger impact?
Wait,
and hold on a second. In a
answer.
50-50 country where, I mean, the scales are like balanced, where these elections are just a few thousand votes.
Yeah.
What do you think
48,
the result is going to be if we actually have a level playing field and we get rid of this swindler's dark money?
Because so much money was funneled through influencers, celebrities, politicians, and government, it adds that much more insult to the people whose money was taken. With Sam Bankman-Fried, there appeared to be an image of a wealthy CEO, but was propped up on opaque companies and inflated assets that only carried the appearance of value. Nonetheless, SBF will have his hands full as judicial and regulatory bodies are now being formed to bring forth justice so that this level of fraud will be much harder to achieve in the market again. Just last week, Sam Bankman-Fried agreed to testify at a U.S. House hearing on Tuesday. Although the ex-CEO of FTX has been on somewhat of a media tour the last few weeks, talking about the implosion of his crypto empire, this will be the first time the public has the chance to hear from SBF under oath. We'll be keeping an eye on this. What do you guys think about the latest interview with Chamath on the All In podcast and their take on the fallout of FTX and where the market is headed next? Comment down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. This is Library of Wealth. We'll see you in the next video.